Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
Something's calling us a little bit deeper. So there's a teacher, Andrew Harvey. He teaches the mystic traditions. And I first heard him speak in the late 1990s, and he's very passionate. He's very articulate. Just to give a sense, he went to Oxford, and he was very young and did very well, and he was also then became a professor at Oxford and taught Shakespeare and French literature. Very erudite guy, and then started having spiritual, mystical experiences. He had spent the first 9 years of his life in India, and so he went back to India, and his whole life has been a spiritual journey since then. So when he talks, he has this gift of language, but he also has this incredible passion. And so he came to Agape a couple times to speak, which is, for those of you who don't know, a spiritual center in Los Angeles. And I wasn't sure what I thought about him, because he definitely had a different vibe to him, and I wasn't sure. And then I was in Cleveland, and he came to the church there and did a full-day workshop. Now, I want to say workshop with quotes, because at Agape, a workshop meant experientials. You do things, you participate. But he didn't do that for this. And I can tell you, of all the workshops that I've ever been to, it was by far my favorite. But it was very different. So one of the things he did, which really has nothing to do with our talk, but just to know why sometimes I have this little quirk. He kept saying in the workshop, close the doors. He was like crazy obsessed with closing the doors. So finally someone said, why do you need the doors closed? And he said, because as we're in here, it keeps the energy from getting out. We can build the energy. We're here all day, and we want the energy to build, so we want to close the doors. And I don't know if it works or not, but certainly that's what happened while we were there. But the energy that built was not an energy was like in terms of an ecstatic energy. By the time I left, I wasn't like, that was amazing. It was so different. And the reason why it was different was because of the morning. In the morning, he spent most of his time talking about facing the darkness and opening our heart to it. And he went into great detail in terms of his own life, on his own spiritual journey, and all his references as a scholar that he also is, as a scholar of mystical traditions. So we didn't go when we went into lunch. We weren't depressed. We weren't like, all that darkness, that's so heavy. But we were like, we're like, because our hearts were open to the darkness. We got it, but it was a different type of feeling. And after lunch, and then we came back, and then he started moving more and more into the light. But now it wasn't light to transcend the darkness. It was light that was emerging through the darkness. And so the darkness started to dissipate. And the light that we started to feel, and by the end, was this incredibly peaceful light. It wasn't an ecstatic light. It wasn't a light that has to resist anything. It was a light that fully embraced the entire existence of our human and spiritual life. And it was beautiful. I say all that because this month we're going to go through 4 stages of consciousness, which for some classes I've gone into a lot of detail. Other classes we just touched on it briefly, and some of you may never have heard of it. So I'm going to explain it at first, but we're going to go into it pretty deeply soon. So the 4 stages are to me, and to me is where we feel like life is happening to us. By me, where we feel empowered to create life. Through me, where life is moving through us. And then as me, which is unification. And this is a wonderful, so we're going to start with to me. And to me is a very different way than how we normally start, because generally we start, if we're going to go back to, if we're going to go, let's return to the basics. Let's go return to our foundations. What's our foundations? There's only one power, one presence, and we start with unification. In our prayers, we start with unification. But in this process, we kind of end with unification. So a spoiler alert, we end with unification. We're all one at the end, okay? So now we know where we're going. So that's the 4th week, but we already know the 4th week. But we're starting here with the to me. And to me, that grounds us, and it creates a different feeling tone to be in the to me. So I want to explain the shadow side of to me, because to me is where we feel helpless and powerless, where the world is happening to us. So often it's called the victim stage. And for me, I don't know about you, but in the family that I was raised in and the community I was raised in, there was nothing worse than to be a victim. It was just not tolerated. Oh, they're just being a victim. Stop whining. Do something about it. You got the, just stop, blah, blah, blah. So that was it. So there was a dislike of the victim stage, which is the to me stage, and that's how I learned this when I first learned this. Oh, the to me stage is the victim stage, and that's what you don't want to be. You want to be at these other three stages. I feel a victim to my microphone. So, but what I've learned since, so that's, and the reason why, and there's a good reason why, because when people can get into the victim stage, they can get into the stage of learned helplessness. Oh, this is just the way it is. It's my genetics. I was born this way. It's my family. I had this horrible family. Oh my gosh, you should see my astrological sign. Myers-Briggs, Enneagram. We can use anything. I don't have enough education. I didn't have enough money. I didn't have enough. I didn't have this. I didn't have that. We have all sorts of reasons. The laws of the country, all sorts of reasons to just like I ain't got no options. My life sucks, and that's just the way it is. That was the cards that were dealt to me, or to my family, so that's the place why we run from it, because who wants to live in that for very long? It's very depressing and exhausting. So people often can get into a place of despair and depression, or almost aggressiveness with their victimhood. I remember there was a woman. This is years ago. And she wanted to embrace her shadow side. And so in doing that, because we talk a lot about the higher light places, and she goes, no, I'm getting into my, but then every time you saw her, how are you? I'm terrible. And then she would go into a long story, and every time, and week after week, month after, and this is going on, and it just gets tiring, right? So it's not even your own self. It gets, you tend to start staying away from someone who's almost aggressive with how horrible their life is. So it's not a stage that we particularly like. But the shift that's been happening in me is to also see the beauty that if we skip this stage, we actually miss the pearl of great price. Because there's a reason why Jesus said, the meek shall inherit the earth. When we're at this stage, we feel powerless and we feel helpless. And what happens is, the shadow side comes when we don't actually own that. It's not the powerlessness that is so devastating, or the helplessness. It's the giving into it and just letting it own us and making that, like, that becomes my personality. Almost to the point of you're actually not being vulnerable. I don't know if you've ever met someone like that who's sort of a victim, but they're not really vulnerable victims. Like, yeah, I just suck. They're not really opening up. It's sort of like a shutdown. The treasure of this is when we open our hearts, and it's the most vulnerable place to be. This stage is the most vulnerable place that we can be in our life. All the 12-step programs begin at this stage. I'm powerless. I'm powerless over this. I'm powerless over what I can't do. But to actually say that out loud to yourself, to people, to God, to open up requires so much vulnerability that we will do almost anything we can to stay away from owning that and admitting that. And yet, the pure of heart, the meek, the richness comes the moment we admit our powerlessness, the moment we admit our helplessness in the face of my physical health, in the face of my emotional health, in the face of finances, relationships, work, anything. I went to Trader Joe's yesterday. I have had on my list chia seeds for a long time now to get Trader Joe's. I went to Trader Joe's and I came home and I forgot the chia seeds. I feel a perpetual powerless to remember to get my chia seeds. That we can feel helpless about in any moment. It can happen any minute, any little thing. I feel helpless. I keep getting red lights. There's nothing I do. Am I doing something wrong? Did I think a wrong thought? Am I out of alignment with the universe because I'm getting red lights? And suddenly you've shifted into this victim mode. We can do it at any moment. But then if we just say, oh, I just feel helpless in this moment. I feel helpless about getting my chia seeds, and I need a list now. I never used to need lists. Actually, so this is actually funny. I had a great memory in my life, so I've never written lists because I didn't need to. I forget things but I don't write lists because I refuse to admit that I'm forgetting things. But I mean, if I don't do things, it's just because I forget all the time. Now, well, first of all, we got so many emails and texts. I'm always forgetting, and apologize because I'm always forgetting. But it would really help if I owned my helplessness, my powerlessness, and wrote lists. I have to surrender to it, and that's the pearl of great price. The pearl of great price cannot come until we own it, until I say I am powerless to remember everything that I used to remember 20 years ago, and I have to do something about it. But I'm not going to get to the do me stage until I get to the place of the feeling stage. This is really uncomfortable to constantly forget. And I'm using a small thing, but they're big things too. Because the truth is there's a lot of things that we've all been through that are very painful, and we avoid them because they're so painful. There's a great story that I'm about to tell you, and my preface is, some of you may have already heard this story. I heard this story 3 decades ago, and when I heard it, I'm like, oh yeah, I know that. I mean, I'm telling you a story that is so obvious, and you're going to be like, yeah, of course. What I want you to do, though, is beyond the, of course, I get it. I want you to listen to it, because the funny thing is I have not heard this story in 30 years, and I've never forgotten it. So there's a pearl of great price in the story, even though you know it. And I don't mean you might not know the specific story, but you know the moral of the story before I even start, practically. It's a woman, it's a Buddhist story, oh man, I tried to memorize it, now I can't. Well, anyways, I did. It's so, you're right. I did though, but I forgot it. Kirogami or something. Whatever. And what? And so she is a very young girl. Not a lot of people liked her, and then this guy sees her beauty, marries her, and they have a baby. And this baby, she now feels part of everything. She's accepted. She's part of this whole world, and this baby is her treasure, this baby boy. But unfortunately, this baby boy gets really sick, and the little baby boy dies. But she's a young girl, and she cannot accept that this baby boy has died. She thinks that there's still something that can save him. So she starts going around to her neighbors and knocking on everyone's door. Do you have medicine to save my baby boy? And they're like, no, he's dead. And she's like, he's not dead. I know there's medicine out there. I believe there's medicine. She's going from place to place. Finally, someone says, why don't you go to the spiritual teacher in the next village, who happens to be Buddha? It's nice to have him around. And maybe he can help you. So she takes her baby to Buddha, and she says, my baby is sick, and I need you to help him get well. And Buddha's like, okay, I can help you. What I want you to do first, though, is I want you to go to your village, and I want you to collect 4 or 5 mustard seeds from families who haven't experienced death. And she said, and then bring those mustard seeds back to me. So she goes back to her village, and she knocks on the door. I'm sorry, in fact, I don't know how you knew, but my mother is right now making her transition. Another person, oh, I lost my father, I lost my sister, I lost my child. That every family she went to experienced death. There were no mustard seeds to get to. And even before she went back to Buddha, she started to see, oh, this is part of life. Death is part of life. I'm not special. Life hurts. Life is suffering. And so she let go, and she could finally accept that her son was dead. and feel the full pain of that, to stop fighting it and trying to fix it. See, so many times we want to skip to the higher stages. We want to fix things before we actually feel them. Because what happens is when we feel something, we see it differently. We're trying to fix things sometimes because we're not seeing clear, because we're too afraid to actually feel what's happening. So we end up fixing the wrong thing. We're trying to fix something that isn't, so she was trying to fix a child that was dead. That was fixing the wrong thing. What she was trying to fix was the pain in her heart, and there was no fixing it. She had to feel it. This stage of To Me is about feeling our helplessness and our powerlessness, and it can be so full of pain. It hurts, and that's why we avoid it. That's why we will do anything to fix it. There's a guy named Father Gregory Boyle, and there's a lot of stories like this. He's I think, Catholic minister who has spent his time starting in the 80s working with LA street gangs in Boyle Heights. Well, he was saying that LA is the gang capital of the world and Boyle Heights was the gang capital of LA. And that's where he's immersed his work in since the 80s. And then in the late 2000s, 2008 or something, he wrote a book called Tattoos on the Heart. And it's stories about working with these gang members. And what I loved was his intention behind it. His intention about writing about these gangs, he said, my intention is not to get into the politics of it. My intention is not to write this book to figure out the solutions to the gang problems. I just want you to feel what their life is like, what they are living through every day. I want you to feel tattooed on your heart their lives. He wasn't doing the spiritual bypass. He wasn't like, let's just go, it's all God, or we're going to fix it here. Feel it first. Have that incredible kindness and compassion. Because if we can't open up at this first stage into kindness and compassion, that's the gift of this stage, the tenderness, then everything that comes afterwards doesn't carry that kindness and that compassion, that tenderness. And in some ways, it kind of feels like that's what's happening in our world today. A lot of I'm not representing anyone, just on my own personal perspective, a lot of the laws that are being passed are incredibly cruel, horrifying actually for me, and we gotta feel that. I mean, $17 trillion is taken away from Medicaid. That's gonna affect some people's lives. These things start to happen when we stop feeling compassion, and the people who are doing that probably have a very hard time being tender with themselves, being able to embrace their own meekness. That's like the worst thing ever, is to be meek, is to be powerless, is to be helpless. And that disconnect from that part of ourself, then everything we do after that is distorted. So this stage is not a stage just to skip over as we go through by me, through me, and as me. This stage is essential. This stage is the stage where our hearts get softened, where we learn the power of compassion that everyone here, I was thinking Buddha had her go to every house, every family. Have you had death? And I think today we could say there'd be very few families that you can go to. I was going through ones in my own, and I couldn't think of families that I know who haven't experienced some sort of trauma. We talk about PSC and the power of the impact of trauma on people's lives, and yet how many, and we make it sound like it's special, but actually, how many families have never experienced trauma in their family of some kind? Moving through this world with a sense of tenderness for what we are going through. Life, first noble truth in Buddhism is life is suffering. That creates compassion and tenderness towards one another. And it changes our whole trajectory of how we live our life when we realize there are people who are really struggling. Mystically speaking, it's also true. Well, first of all, when we opened up to our powerless, this is where the mundane and the spiritual start to combine, because even in our human stuff, even when I can't get the red lights, even when I can't remember the chia seeds and remember stuff, I can do something about it, but first I have to own it, and I give it over to God, to this divine presence of love. It can, if you are willing, when you admit you're feeling helpless about something, to own it, to feel it, but feel it in the presence of the divine and feel it in the presence of others. That's why 12 Steps is so powerful, because it does both, the higher power and each other. But we do that in spiritual community as well. You have spiritual community. I can own that I'm feeling helpless in this situation. And the people around you are going to support you, and they're going to support you not just in telling you what to do, but knowing the divine presence is right there with you. That even as you're feeling maybe disconnected from the divine, we hold and remember who and what you really are. And then spiritually, when we go on this journey, we get to these places of helplessness as well. Because we are all new when it comes to the realm of the infinite. The infinite is a mystery to everyone. There is not a spiritual teacher who has all the answers. None. None. So there is an element of mystery for all of us. And so we are always new. You can be on the same path. You can be a Buddhist, a Christian, a religious scientist, whatever your path is, a new thought person, for decades, but you're still new. Because we're infinite beings, and there's still so much we do not know. And so you can get, that's what dark night of the soul is. You get so, and then suddenly everything ends. Like, I've been on this journey for years, and then suddenly it's all gone. Where did it go? Wait, there's all this spiritual practice. It's like it's never happened. Is it even real? That's a dark night of the soul. You can get to a place where I want to be a spiritual person, and I've been doing this for years, and I want to be unconditionally loving, and I don't measure up. I don't measure up to my own ideals of what it means to be a spiritual person. That can make you feel helpless and powerless. There's all sorts of things when you're on the spiritual journey that can make you feel helpless and powerless. But if we do not own it, if we say, well, no, but I'm one with God and I know that there's a disconnect. Oh, no, I'm fine. Or we can still try to fix it with especially with the empowerment stage. I can get it. If I know God and I know the truth, I can fix this feeling. And there's nothing wrong with that, but first feel it. On the spiritual journey, the mystery is the place where our heart opens up. Over and over, you hear in the beautiful spiritual poetry, what is it? Where the wound is, the light comes in. All of you, I know have had those experiences, right? Where you just don't know what to do, and you just stop, and in that helplessness, in that powerlessness, you open your heart, and the power of God moves through. And it may happen in a moment, or it might take a long time, but it always shows up. And the helplessness, if we know that it's not a bad thing, but it's part of the process, that the Spirit is reconstructing our understanding, because every single time, at least for me, ultimately I read in books that it's true for other people, but I can speak most honestly about myself, is no matter how hard, and I've had times where it's just for a moment, I've had a time when it's lasted for months, I get to this place. And there are times where it's lasted generally when it lasts a long time, it's because I've tried to fix it. And it's not until I'm done trying to do all the things that I want to do to try to fix it that I finally just go, oh, forget it, I can't fix it. No matter how hard I try, you can't fix it. When it's of God, see, this is the scary part. When it's of God, I can't fix it. I can do every tool, I can do everything I want, or even, I think that's the purpose of addiction, powerless of addiction. No matter what I do, I can't quit. There's something like no matter what I try to do, spiritually or humanly, I can't change it. So the only choice is to surrender and say, I can't do this. Help. There's can't remember, there's a spiritual, some of you have told me about her, but her said her favorite prayer is help. Now it's going to drive me crazy what her name is. But this memory thing, I talked about it and here it is. Okay, but anyway, that being willingness to say, I don't know. We cannot be afraid to say, I don't know. Yes, I have mastered many things. Yes, I've been on a spiritual journey, but I don't know, and I'm scared. I'm really scared. A story actually with help just came to my mind with Michael Beckwith. For those of us who heard him back in Sona Rosa all these years, I've never forgotten it because I've known him for a really long time. Spiritual mystic, lives in this expanded state all the time. When you're with him, he takes you up to these higher vibrations all the time. And yet he tells the story when he was out swimming somewhere and he went beyond and he got caught up in the current and he did not have the power to swim back to shore and there was nobody around him. And he said, after all the spiritual work I've done, after everything I've done, the only thing I could do was help. Help me, God, help. And just open his heart up and say, help me. And as he said that, a wave came and pushed him towards shore. He couldn't have made that wave happen, but he did have to ask for help and make himself available. Because when we say help, we make ourselves available. So this stage of to me has this extraordinary possibility of the preciousness. To me, it's the pearl of great price, that pure heart, that reminds us that humanly, I don't breathe, it's spirit that breathes through me. I'm not in charge, that there's something bigger that has greater ideas for me, and the more I surrender to it, there are going to be times that I've hit my limit of what I know, and I have to surrender. Humanly, there are times where I've hit my limit of what I can do or what I can change about myself, and I have to let go of surrender. There are times where I cannot stop, and I don't mean I, but we cannot stop saying terrible things about ourselves, beating ourselves up, being unkind. Help. I need to shift this inner world. I don't know how to do it. And we don't want to be codependent either. When we ask, I don't know how to do it, that doesn't mean I don't forever know how to do it, but in this moment, I need help. It does not condemn you to a life of helplessness. It does not condemn you to a life of I'm going to be constantly needing other people. But there are moments in our lives we absolutely need help. And that's beautiful, because that's what brings the connection with God and with each other. So I'm thinking about today's world because it's scary. And not just what's happening with the government, but climate change. I feel completely powerless about that. And I heard some report that it's actually we're hitting markers much sooner than even the people who are saying it's terrible. They're saying we're getting there sooner, so it's worse than they thought. We have AI, which is don't ever think we're going back to the old way. AI is changing us and will continue to change us dramatically. I've been listening to this idea from my brother since the 70s about cyborgs, and it seems so weird. And now I'm like, oh yeah, we're going to become cyborgs. What is cyborgs? Technology becomes, we have some biology and some technology. I was at Whole Foods the other day, and now Amazon, I'm just going to say Jeff Bezos, says, oh, you can scan your hand now. I'm like, scan my hand? What am I putting a thing in there? No. And it was benign. But what I see is like, oh, you're getting people used to using their body, so they're not going to need their phone. Oh, because it comes from the outside in. It's not coming from the face technology, at least it's your face. But they're already beginning, I don't know if you've heard, they're putting stuff in people's hands so they can scan it, you can follow them. Oh, you don't even need a phone, it's inside of you. They're making us more and more comfortable. Those evil ones. I think I have a whole thing about that, but because it's not they. We've been co-creating this for quite some time. So in Whole Foods, I'm like, oh, they're just getting us used to it. It's benign now. Oh, I don't need a card, I don't need a phone, I can just use my hands. Oh, well, if we put this chip in you, you can do more things. And that's how we become cyborgs. I know it sounds crazy, but I don't think we're going backwards. I mean, we are going backwards in other ways. But either something horrible is going to happen and AI disappears, or we're going more and more. Does that make anyone else nervous or uncomfortable? Helpless? It sure makes me that way. What can I do? And then, so this is where we get into blame, because we feel powerless. This is what we do when we're powerless. It's them, and there's some truth to that. I'm not saying that that's not true, but that's going to be exhausting if that's the only place. What can I do? If I'm only worrying about changing it out there, what can I do? And always the answer is go to God. Go to God. I don't know what that's going to look like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the line, 100 years down the line. But I do know that the divine presence is real, and I know that I know that I know that, and I know you know that. We all know that. And so that's the place that over and over and over, when we're at the to-me stage, the helpless stage, often, at least for me, and I'm guessing for most of you, often, most of the time, the only place to go to is open to this divine presence, into its mystery, to trust its mystery, to trust its light, to trust its love, and say, help me, teach me, guide me, heal me. Let ourselves feel it, like Father Gregory Boyle, feel, before you try to fix it, feel the tenderness of your soul, the pain. Because I do want to say, I guess that's how I want to end it. Because sometimes it can feel so like, this is so beautiful to surrender. That's a little bit later in the through me. To me is a very painful stage. Let me be very clear. It's very painful. The reason why people avoid it and embrace almost being helpless or try to fix everything and not feel it is because the pain of it hurts so bad. It can hurt emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally. It hurts. And we don't like to feel that hurt. And you don't get the treasure until you feel the hurt, so we avoid it. But when we start to feel it, the treasure reveals itself. So let us be kind. Be kind with yourself. Be kind with each other. Because all of us are in this environment, all of us. Nobody escapes climate change, AI, what's happening in our government. It involves every one of us. And a lot of us, maybe you're not, but a lot of us are feeling fear. We're feeling helpless, powerless. And so the first place for us to go is into tenderness and compassion. And it's much easier to be tender and compassionate with other people if you are being tender and compassionate with yourself. So at this to-me stage, be willing to be brave enough to feel the fear, to feel the pain. Because what I only can say for myself, because I can't speak, there's a lot, I know it's true for other people, but I always get nervous speaking for anyone else. It always leads, when we listen to God and we turn our pain over, only good comes from that. New life that we can't even begin to imagine starts to emerge. And that's the rest of this month. And I'm looking forward to going on that journey the rest of this month. But it starts here. It starts with the tenderness. It starts with the gentleness and the compassion for the challenges that it means to be a human being in this world. So this week, be tender. Actually, always be tender. Be brave to feel what you feel, and be kind. Be kind to yourself, and be kind to one another. Let's pray. So let's begin backwards from what we normally do. And let's begin with our human frailty. Excuse me. Let's begin with our human frailty. Those places where we feel insecure. You might feel emotionally insecure, physically insecure, financially insecure, relationship insecure, insecure in this planet, in our citizenship as a member of this planet. Places where we feel insecure. And we know in this moment we're safe. Right now, everyone is safe. So if you feel safe enough, just let yourself even feel a little bit of that insecurity that you might feel in any area of your life, or multiple areas. Those areas in your life that you don't feel so strong in. And just allow ourselves to give it over and just say to the divine presence, help us. We don't know what to do. We don't know what to do about these parts of our life that just keep showing up. We think we heal them and they show up again. Help. Divine, infinite, unconditional love, help. Infinite power, help. As we open our hearts and our bodies, our minds and our souls to everything that's happening on this planet, help. I don't know, as an individual, I have no idea what to do that's going to even make one little bit of an impact on the tsunami wave that seems like it's coming right at me. Help. I surrender. Help. I'm scared. Help. I'm scared. Help. And in this presence and in this power, we know that help has already been given. That this is the safest place to be, is opening our heart, our body, our mind, and our soul in tenderness, in surrender, in that wonderful, meek, pure heart. And we allow the beauty and the harmony and the intelligence and the love and the power of God to open our heart and to show us that we are not alone, that we are safe, that we are loved, that all will and is well, that all shall be well and all shall be well. That we live in that awareness that as we surrender and open up that help is being given now to every one of us, individually and collectively. Yes, the divine universe, this infinite love, intelligence, this infinite love, this infinite power is saying yes, 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 yes. The help is here, the love is here, the kindness, the generosity is here, the tenderness, the compassion is here. The new ways that we never thought possible are showing up. New heaven and new earth are showing up now in our openness, in our vulnerability, in our surrender. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, love itself, for pouring your infinite good. And it turns out that tsunami wave is a tsunami wave of love beyond anything we could ever possibly imagine. And it is changing all of our lives, and it is good and very good. I don't know how, I can't see it, but I know that I know that I know the source, the one source behind all of this. And it is always, always good. And it is showing up for every one of us, individually and collectively, right here and right now. Thank you, thank you, thank you. In deep abiding joy and everlasting peace, we release this word, we release it, we let it go, we don't hold on to it, we trust and we know it is done, and we say together, and so it is. Amen and amen.
I walk in God,